In today's video, I'll be starting a brand new survival series with the Create mod. And I will also be leaving links in the description to all the mods I used if you want to check them out. And as for the settings in this world, I will be keeping cheats off with the difficulty on normal. And I will also be turning off fire spreads because nobody likes having fire spread in their world. But other than that, everything will be kept the same as it normally is. But without further ado, let's get into it. And it seems that we spawned in a forest biome with the ocean next to it. And I went ahead and started grabbing the basic things that you need to start a Minecraft world, such as wood, tools, and got some food, which I will be using on my mining trip. And speaking of mining, I found this cave early on that I will head into later after I get a bit more geared up. And if you wanted to follow along with this world, here is the seed, and I have the map in the top left corner so you know the coordinates at all times. And while I was exploring a bit, I found this ruined portal with a golden axe that had smite 4 and a gold shovel with efficiency 5. Then I went back down into that cave we found earlier, where I was met by a couple mobs, including a creeper that immediately exploded, but I was not so lucky this time when fighting that creeper since it did take out half my health. But I ate the rotten flesh that I got from the zombies to heal and started getting a few of the basic materials. I then made a couple of furnaces to smelt the copper and iron. I then used some of that iron to make a shield, which would be very useful. I also have a Create Mod add-on on here that allows me to make copper armor and tools. Then I went ahead and made an iron pick and axe, as well as a copper chest plate to protect myself. Then I went down into the mines to grab some more resources, but first I had to fight off a couple of zombies. And then I proceeded to fall while I was mining iron and die for the first time in this world. But I was not going to let that stop me, so I went back to the cave at nighttime. And whenever I got back to the cave, I found this creeper with a backpack on, which is a part of the Sophisticated Backpacks mod. But I did, however, go get the rest of my items I had lost from falling down, as well as making a set of copper leggings and boots. But while doing so, I heard a chicken jockey, whom I very skillfully killed the chicken first. Then I let the baby zombie chase me around for a little bit. A spider interrupted and knocked me off my pillar, where I then ran down to the bottom of that little cavern and pillared up before eating some food, then killing the spider, eating some more food, and finally killing the baby zombie. And then I went back to finish off my copper set, and I went ahead and made a bucket as well. But while I was going to fill up that bucket, I found a baby zombie whom I very easily killed and went up to grab the water that I needed before heading back down to the caves to grab what was left of the smelted ingots. I also set my bed and respawn point, grabbed the crafting table, and went back down into the caves to mine a bunch more resources, as well as kill a couple mobs that I found on the way. Then I found my first diamond after eating some rotten flesh. Then I ate some more rotten flesh, got some zinc, ate even more rotten flesh, found a few more mobs. After I dealt with those, I found another diamond in the ceiling, as well as a couple more diamonds, which I was able to use to make my first diamond pickaxe, which helped me get even more diamonds. And after grabbing a few more resources, I decided to make a bucket so I could grab some lava, which I would use later to smelt items with an encased fan, as well as making a diamond axe. Then I went and grabbed some more resources, as well as eating even more rotten flesh. I don't know why I ate so much rotten flesh during this caving adventure. Might have been just to get it out of my inventory. Then I found this zombie spawner, which I didn't need, so I went ahead and broke the spawner, and I finally got enough string so I could make myself a sophisticated backpack, which would help me carry a lot more items. I made 2 backpacks backpacks. And I also have the Curios API mod, which allows me to have a separate slot for my backpack rather than swapping it out with my chest plate. I then stumbled upon a mine shaft where I had a cave spider chase me that did poison me before I killed it, but I did end up recovering from the poison, as well as finding some pretty bad loot in the chest. I then found a zombie with a backpack on that had a jukebox upgrade, so it was playing a music disc, which I had to cut out for copyright purposes, but it had some crazy effects on it. It had resistance 2, absorption 2, health boost 2, speed 4, and what is fire resistance 2 for? Fire resistance 1 already completely makes you immune to lava. Does it heal from being on fire or something? Whatever. After that, I started mining my way out of the cave because there was no way I was going to find my way out with how bad I am at navigating caves. But once I got back up to the surface, I realized that I needed to go grab my furnaces. But before I was able to get back down into the cave, I had this creeper come towards me and a skeleton teamed up with it to push it into me. Luckily, I was able to bring my shield up before it exploded. So then I, of course, had to deal with the skeleton before grabbing the rest of my items, as well as some andesite because I forgot to get some while I was down in the cave earlier. And after caving, these are the items that I ended up with. I then went ahead and started exploring to find a good base spot. I then found this village here with a river next to it, and I planned to have a river next to my starter base, so this was a pretty good place to be around. And the first chest I looted had 3 diamonds and some obsidian, but I got some hay bales before looting a second blacksmith chest that had enough obsidian on its own to build an entire nether portal, but we'll have to save that for next video. I also grabbed some more hay bales and found a ruined portal, which had some pretty bad loot in it, but then I went around and explored the area a little bit more and found that this place was probably a pretty good place to settle down, so I went ahead and set up a camp consisting of some furnaces, a bed, and a crafting table where I could smelt my ores and craft things just before I went out to explore for a taiga biome because I needed spruce logs for my build. And I also set a waypoint for the base so I didn't get lost. And in my adventuring, I found a pretty bad village, and I, for some reason, debated getting this smithing table twice, but then I ended up not grabbing it, and after that, I went ahead and kept exploring until I finally saw a spruce tree in the distance, as well as a village. But first I went over to the land and found this shipwreck which had 0 chests in it. But then I went ahead and grabbed a bunch of spruce logs and saplings so I could bring them home. And looking back, I completely forgot to go to the village, and I just went on my way back home, which was about 2,000 block journey. And on my way, I had to grab some kelp since I would be needing that to make mechanical belts. And I also found a few dogs on my way, which I went ahead and tamed 4 of them. And the dogs ended up chasing a skeleton, which was kind of funny to see a skeleton running from 4 dogs, but then the 5 of us got back home and I went to sleep. And whenever I woke up that morning, I went ahead and went over to another side of the river where I could plant my spruce trees, since I did not want to have those spruce trees growing on my island since they convert the grass to podzol. And while I was over there, I decided to grab a few flowers so I could dye the collars of my dogs. And leave a comment down below with what you think the dog's name should be. Just go ahead and leave the name and the color of their collar, and I will see about giving that dog that name. And I was also still carrying all of my items in my backpack, so I went ahead and made a double chest so I could store some items, as well as placing down all the backpacks, except for the one that was on my back, of course. And after I had put away some items, I finally made my first create mod item, which was andesite alloy, which I then used to make a casing and some shafts so I could have my first mechanical press, which I placed down here and made a hand crank for as well. And I also wanted to make a wrench and some goggles, so I went ahead and smelted up some sand into glass. And while the glass was smelting, I pressed some gold ingots into sheets before realizing that just using a hand crank is too slow, so I went ahead and made 2 cogwheels so that I can gear ratio this hand crank up. And of course, this overstressed the mechanical press, so I had to make the first water wheel, which I gave some water, and I was now able to press my ingots at twice the speed, and I was even able to have them pressed while I wasn't doing anything. I then went ahead and grabbed the glass out of the furnace to make some goggles, and I also made a wrench as well. And if you don't know what a wrench does, it basically allows you to rotate certain create mod items, as well as crouch and right click to pick them up. Then I went ahead and made a basin and set my sights on making a mixer, which would require a casing, cogwheel, and a whisk. And that whisk requires 2 andesite alloys and 5 iron sheets. I slept to the next day, so I didn't have any interruptions while I was trying to craft the basic create mod machines. Then I went ahead and made the iron sheets that I need and accidentally picked them up too early, so I had to go press another sheet. But then I was able to finally make the whisk, which I would use to make the mechanical mixer, which I placed down pretty close to the mechanical press. And I got a bit lazy here and just stole the cogwheel and hand crank from the mechanical press so I could make some andesite alloys. And if you didn't know, making andesite alloy in the mixer is actually half the price of what it costs to make it in a crafting table. And next I needed to make an encased fan, so I went ahead and started pressing up the iron sheets I needed to make the propeller, as well as making the andesite casing. I then failed to place the hand crank on the correct part of the cogwheel, and I got tired of having to move the large cogwheel and hand crank every time I needed to switch between the mechanical mixer and press, so I went ahead and just made a large cogwheel and hand crank for each of them. Then I made the propeller that I needed, as well as the encased fan with it, and a water wheel. But then I placed the encased fan down next to the mixer, placed the water wheel wrong the first time, but got it the second time, and placed the water wrong the first time, but got it the second time as well. I then went ahead and made a flint and steel so I could cook food with this encased fan, because keep in mind that I have been eating rotten flesh and raw food this entire time, so having some cooked food would be good for my character, I guess. I then set my sights on making a stone cutter, which I would be able to use to make some copycat panels. And I also went to grab my food at the perfect time because it finished cooking just about as soon as I got there. And here I also demonstrated that you should not stand in front of an encased fan whenever it has fire in front of it. Totally not an accident. Started cooking up some pork chops while I went to make that stone cutter, which I then used to make copycat panels. But I also have this add-on called Create Copycats Plus, which adds a bunch of different copycats, which I'll be using in future videos, but for now I'll stick to the panels. And after my pork chops were done, I went ahead and surrounded that block in front of the encased fan with panels so I could put lava in there, which allowed me to smelt ores much faster than I would be able to in a furnace. And the final create machine I wanted to make was the mechanical saw. And if you don't know what this does, it actually does something really cool, and I'll show you whenever we get to it. But for now, I went ahead and made the casing and the iron sheets I needed. I then obtained the mechanical saw and made a hand crank for it. And if you don't know, a mechanical saw, when placed at the base of a tree, can actually cut down the entire tree using just a little bit of rotational power, which you can see here. And with this newfound technology, I went over to where I had planted my spruce trees and started cutting down a bunch of wood which I would need to build my starter base. And after getting enough wood, I went to sleep. And the next day I decided to go into that cavern that we found whenever we first came to this area, so I could go mine out some stone and deep slate, which I'll also be needing for the starter base. And I stumbled upon this spot that looked good enough to start mining in, so I grabbed a bit of coal for some torches, but I was rudely interrupted by a creeper while trying to make those torches. So after I lit up the place, I had to fight off a few more zombies, but then I was finally able to start mining out the cobblestone that I needed. But little did I know, something was watching me. And after almost dying to that creeper, I went ahead and just got back to mining. And whenever I started mining out the deep slate, I had the good idea to put a wall between me and any mobs that could want to try and attack me. And the wall seemed pretty effective. And immediately as I got done mining all the stone and deep slate I would need, I went up to the surface and started terraforming the area a bit. And after I was done terraforming, I started by making the frame of the house. Then I filled in the walls with a mix of stone, cobblestone, and tuff, leaving them one block back from the frame. I then broke out the floor and started stripping the logs on the frame. And once I had done that, I started filling in the first and second floor with oak planks. And then I started putting down a roof trim made out of stone and cobblestone, and it took me a few tries to get the right roof shape, but I eventually did get it. Then I started copying a similar roof trim to all of the other sides that needed it. And for the roof I chose to do cobbled deep slate and polished deep slate. And of course I did not get enough deep slate, so I went back down into the mines to grab more, and after I got back I continued working on the roof. Then I realized yet again that I had ran out of deep slate, and in doing this I almost broke my diamond pickaxe, so I had to make a new one. I finished building the roof and did some final bits of decoration for the second floor. Then I got started on making a water wheel which I would put in the river, and not only would it look nice, but it would also function to give all of our machines power. Then everything that I had left outside I brought inside, and on the inside I also added a gear ratio since just the speed of the water wheels was not going to cut it. And whenever I went outside to grab the last few items, I was met by 2 zombies at my door, which were then followed by 4 more zombies, which I also dealt with. And of course, whenever I woke up after sleeping, it started raining. But of course, the dogs did not want to cooperate, and eventually I just had to break down the door to actually let them inside. And once they had all gotten inside, I sat them down. I also added some dirt paths on the outside of my house to make it look a little bit nicer. Then I saw this trader outside my house with some llamas that would not stop spinning. The wandering trader had awful trades. But then I just found some random leather and leads laying on the ground, which was cool. But anyways, here is a tour of the new base. We can see that I have a couple of crafting tables on this first floor, as well as the bed and encased fan, mechanical saw, mixer, and mechanical press, with these gear ratios bringing the RPM from 8 up to 64. And I decided to make this encased fan independent because it's a little bit easier to do that than to route power over to it. Although now that I think about it, water wheels do cause some lag, so it might be better to bring power over from this gearbox, just like that, which will get the encased fan spinning the correct direction. And I can go ahead and remove this water, then make a casing so I can encase this to make the ground look nicer. And yeah, that's definitely better, because the less water wheels we have, the less laggy it's gonna get. And upstairs I have a few chests as well as some backpacks just laying around, the stone cutter, a crafting table, as well as this balcony here with some skeletons outside. And of course it hid behind that tree. That was a terrible shot. But over here I also have this other balcony looking out to the water. We can see the water wheels from here, as well as some kelp that I planted here earlier so I can have kelp to make belts. And we can even look out over to this village where that iron golem just killed a zombie. And of course I have the 4 dogs here, and one of them is upstairs. And here's a little look at the base from the outside. Hopefully you enjoyed watching, and if you haven't tried the Create mod, it is a super fun mod and I highly recommend it, especially if you like other automation games such as Satisfactory or Factorio. And I would really appreciate it if you left a comment down below with anything you think I could do to make these videos better, since this is my first time making a video on the Survival Create mod. And while you're down there, it would be super helpful if you hit that like and subscribe button. But enough of me ranting, and I will see you in the next one.